Hey guys, a bit of a different video today. I normally do a lot of like colour grading kind of stuff, but today I thought I would show you guys my rig that I use on music videos or any kind of videos. It generally stays the same. I might just take away a few things, but it's all quite modular, so I can add whatever I need to as and when. You'll see what I mean when we get there. So the rig is all centered around the Sony A7Siii. It's my daily driver. It's still a really good camera in 2023. There's been a few Sony cameras released since then, but honestly, this does fine. It's got the cage on it already from Small Rig. You've seen cages been put on 1,000 times if you're watching gear review videos or rigging videos, so I just thought I'd save some time. I've also got the NATO rail with a 15mm rod clamp on there. You'll see why later, and a quick release plate as well. So we're just going to put that to the side, and we're going to start off with the base plate. So we've got the Small Rig base plate with a quick release plate on there, just the other end. One thing to note though, that with this little handle here, it does come loose from time to time. I do find myself having to tighten up that little bolt there. It's not a big deal, it takes like 2 seconds, but just something to be aware of when you do clamp your camera in, just to double check that it is actually secure before you lift it, as it might come loose. Moving on to the rails, just Small Rig rails. Nothing crazy. Built this on the tin, you know. Cool. So we've got our base plate with the rods, nice and easy. So the next thing is we're going to put on this other rail clamp, and it's got a smaller NATO rail on it, and this is going to be for our wireless transmitter. And I don't use this all the time, but when I do use it, it's just nice to have, and that fits on just there. It might be that these need to be like moved around and adjusted, but generally they should be fine. So the reason I put it here, you'll see why more later, but I'm not a big fan of the rigs where the wireless is like off to the side or raised up like to the top, because it just makes the whole profile of the camera too big. So I like to fit mine just here, and you'll see the wireless just there, so it will fit like that later, but we'll get there. So camera, just the base plate. And then I'm going to actually just tighten that bolt up. It's feeling a little bit loose. There we go. Cool. The camera's on there, feeling good. So next up is the battery plate, and I've already put this together just to save time, but it's made up of 3 parts, and I actually got this little build from Caleb Pike on YouTube. So it's a Nitsi V-Lock power module with I think it's a Nicey Rig cheese plate with a Small Rig rail clamp. So let's just pop this on without trying to damage anything. There we go. Slots on really nicely. Really good. You can see it's all kind of in line. There's nothing weird sticking up to the sides. And that's just how I like it. Next up, really standard, just top handle. This comes with the A7Siii cage kit. It's been used a little bit. You can see it's kind of, the paint's come off on the edge, but just because I use it that often. And I also got this little spirit level with a screen protector kit. I don't know why this got included, but I thought it was cool. So just fits into your hot shoe like that. It's really cool. And we will tighten that up with an Allen key, just so we're nice and secure. There we go, I think that's good enough. next up, I'm going to put the wireless on. So I will take the screen out for this because once it's on, it's a bit of a nightmare to move around and all of that. Anyway, the transmitter that I'm using is the Hollyland Mars 4K. It's really good. I really enjoy using it. The one thing I don't like about it is that it only has HDMI in, it doesn't have a loop out. So if I need to transmit it, I've got to go in through my monitor from the camera and out from the monitor into this, and it just causes a bit of delay. I would have preferred to go into this from the camera and out from this into the monitor, as well as transmitting, which you can do on more higher end systems like a Teradek, but for the job and the price point, this is really good if you just need a feed, or if you've got more than one HDMI out, SDI out, this will be perfect for it. Right, so to mount this, I've got this little clamp from Photo Better. I just found it on Amazon. It's, yeah, not a brand that I'm super familiar with, but it's super small and it does the job. So that just fits on here like that. And that slides on like so. And then it just needs tightening up. So you can see now with the transmitter on, you can't really close the door of the monitor, but that's fine. We don't need it to, we can just have it sit there. So next up is our monitor. So I'm using the Small HD Indie 7-inch. I did used to use the Atmos Ninja V. It was really good, but I just found it really contrasty in the image, and I didn't like the fact that it didn't have EL zone, which the Indie 7 does, and just all the tools and features that you get with this. It's got SDI in and out, so you can loop in. It's got HDMI in and out as well. So it just means that when I do graduate to a bigger camera, I can take this monitor with me and it's not going to give me any issues. And it's got all the profiles for cinema cameras in there already in terms of LUTs and 709 conversions. So it does the job. So we're just going to pop this on. And I am just using the small rig monitor mount that I think it came with the kit, but I could be wrong. There we go. Cool, and that feels good. Also, this monitor mount isn't the best. I do find it kind of loosening up every now and then. It's something that I will need to get changed eventually, but for now, it's fine. So next up is the lens. I'm using the Sigma 35mm 1.4 Art series lens. I've had this lens for as long as I can remember. It's actually a EF mount lens, but I'm using the Sigma MC11 EF to E converter, just so it works on my camera. Does the job. And I've also got a 1.4 Black Pro Mist on there as well, which is really nice, but I find myself recently kind of not liking it so much. I might take that off at some point, just because it's such a choice, and if it's baked into your footage, it is what it is and there's nothing you can do about it. And I've recently seen some really cool stuff out and about, especially on Blaine Westrop's channel, about some really cool plugins that emulate that. So I might check that out at some point. Let's pop this on. There we go. So you can kind of see we're nearly there with the build, and everything is all in a line, nothing weird sticking out on the side. So next up is power. Just got a Moment V-mount 99 watt-hour battery. It's cool, it's never let me down. It's got a nice port on the side for a D-tap and one on there as well, both sides, really good. And then it's got some USB ports on top. I don't really use those just because I don't like the idea of cables sticking out of the top, potentially getting caught. And it's got a nice battery indicator on the side. And that will just fit nicely on the camera there. So that's basically it in terms of the camera build, and then it's just kind of additional accessories and cabling. So this is a bit of a hodgepodge thing that I put together. It's a small rig handle, but it's from like a gimbal kit. And then I bought the ASSII rosette clamp separately, and then a 50mm rod clamp as well. Slot that in, tighten it up. So there's your side handle. And some people might be asking, well, why have you put it at the top? You see a lot of builds where they have a side handle down here for additional grip, which is cool. I just really like having mine a bit further forward, just more towards the lens, just because it feels a bit more secure, and it's another point of contact at the top of the camera. So when I took this into my shoulder, it's just kind of like a bit more points of contact throughout the entire length. I don't know if that does anything, but it just kind of feels better for me. It also means I can swap this out for a follow focus handle if I need it, that supports the ASSII rosette, like the, I think it's the Nucleus N that does that with the side handle. And then I've got the rods at the bottom for the motors, and it just kind of keeps everything separate and tidy. I'm not clogging these rails with lots of different bits. But it also does mean that the build is kind of a bit wonky on its side. So just for the sake of making my life easier, I'm just going to loosen that so it's flat. There we go. So the next thing is cabling. So I do run everything off of this V-mount. Just makes my life a lot easier. It means I'm not running batteries everywhere. It's such a pet peeve of mine that you've already got this big heavy build and you're just cramming more batteries on it and more weight when it's pretty heavy as it is. Like 10, 15, 20, 30 minutes with this and you can feel it pretty quickly. So I'm just going to go through the cables that I've got. We've got a Condor Blue dummy battery, which is just a D-tap to a dummy Sony battery, which is cool. It is what it is, does what it does. So let's pop that in. And I tend to just keep that cable there, and that sits just in there. We will tidy all the cables up shortly, I promise. So the power is in for the camera, and that just sits in the A7Siii V-Lock power module. So the next cable is for the monitor. It's nothing crazy, it is just a D-tap to locking DC cable. Nothing crazy, just off Amazon. And that is also going to go into the A7Siii power, and that runs under the camera, out the way. Might be able to see it. Can we get there? Yes, we can. So there's just the locking cable there. So that is the monitor powered. And the last thing to power is the wireless. And just the same again. Power cable there. And because I've run out of ports, I do have to go directly from the D-tap, which is a bit annoying. It's easily fixed as well. You can just get a D-tap splitter. But I've heard some horror stories with, you know, overloading or cameras being bricked because of it, so I'd rather not. And that just fits in there. Again, nothing crazy. Oh, good. And one of the last things to do is a HDMI. Just another Condor Blue cable. It's really nice fabric. Lots of give on it. Yeah. And the small rig HDMI cable clamp. Again, nothing crazy. All of these parts, I will say, it's something that I've accumulated over time, especially the wireless. The wireless was my most recent purchase, and it's not something that I use as often as I would have thought, especially if there's not clients on set that kind of need it. For example, like if I do a lot of music videos, and 9 times out of 10 it's just us and the band. They don't really need to see that. They can just watch it on my monitor if they need to. HDMI in there. But it is nice to have, especially if there's like management on set, for example. Cool. Just power it all up. Turns off. And you can see my cooker. Cool. But that is basically ready to go. I do have this lens support as well, which I won't put on now, but it's there for bigger builds and lenses that kind of need it, especially like anamorphic lenses like the A7Siii ones. I'll just pop a photo up of that kind of build that we've used on set before. But yeah, that is basically it in the grand scheme of things. It looks a bit of a hodgepodge there, but it does feel really good in the hand. It does get a little bit heavy after a while, just because there's so much stuff going on there, but I love it. Big fan. Oh, and the last thing as well, I almost forgot, is the ND filter. And I'm using the A7Siii True VND, I think it is. And that just slots on there. It's a bit more of an expensive ND filter, but I used like an off-brand one before and it just completely shifted the colours and looked a little bit muddy, a bit weird. But yeah, this one is really good, and it's got hard stops as well. So you can just adjust it and it stops. So you get no weird X's or crosses in your footage. And it has a filter on the top as well if you need to stack or do anything. So just to kind of go over it again, one last time, it's a lot of small rig parts and just the odd random brand here and there. So the A7Siii V-Lock mount with the cheese plate, the 90 rig cheese plate, better photo better clamp on the transmitter, and then just a combination of different small rig parts that I've just collected over the years. And it serves me really well. I'm really happy with it. It feels good in the hands and there's weight to it, so you don't get kind of the weird jittery handheld motion. It feels quite weighty and natural, kind of like how you'd want it to feel. It does get a bit heavier after a while just because there's so much going on, but it feels robust. So yeah, that's basically it. Let me know what you think, and I'll see you in the next one.